Balkan part, we will have presentation by Tobias, and then we will give you possibility for discussions with Tobias, but you can also use opportunity that Peter join the session, and you can also ask him for questions in connection with the partnerships. So I just remind you that this year we had 7 webinars. We actually started with the first 3 webinars will focus on mapping the situation in Western Balkan in terms of digital transition, health policy, and green transition. And then we move to the topics of missions and European partnerships and initiatives which are on the way to European partnerships. I also remind you that out of this project, we produced 2 policy briefs and also longer reports on the topic of digital transition and green transition. And next year, there will be another policy brief on the topic of health policies. We will share this information with all of you who are registered on our EU Western Balkan platform. I just want to also to insert that in 2023, we created another policy brief where we were looking at research innovation landscape in the Western Balkans, including their participation in European partnerships. And then this is a picture from this policy brief, but you can easily see that if you look at the cluster 1, cluster 4, 5, you see that there are hardly any participation, or even 6, there are hardly participation of Western Balkan in European partnerships, a part of EIT, which in all 6 Western Balkan countries are successfully participating. And the aim of our webinars is actually to highlight the opportunities that the Western Balkan is missing, because European partnerships are a very effective way to implement smart specialization strategies. And Western Balkan countries are working on creating smart specialization strategies, and 2 countries, Montenegro and Serbia, have already created this strategy. So, Tobias, I will now give the floor to you. And once again, I thank you very much for accepting the invitation. And I'm looking forward to your presentation. And I'm sure that we will hear also about opportunities for the Western Balkan to join and participate in the new initiative of the Strategic Research Innovation Agenda on raw materials. So I will now stop sharing my screen and now give you the floor to make presentation.
Thank you, Sandra. I will share with you here my presentation. Thank you. Yes, thanks for the nice words of introduction here. My name is, like Sandra already said, Tobias Kampmann. I'm a program manager at Vinnova, which is Sweden's innovation agency. Background as a geologist, which gives me some sort of insight into the challenges that we're facing when it comes to the raw material innovation system in particular. And I'm going to talk to you today about basically a new co-funded partnership that we're trying to implement within Horizon Europe. We start 2026 and end 2032, so a 7-year duration for that. Some words about where we're coming from, some words about the issues that we're facing, the research agenda that we've been writing, and then the sort of the way forward towards the implementation of the partnership itself, and maybe what's in it for you as representatives of the Western Balkans. So I'm trying to change slides here. Yes, so as I usually like to start these sort of talks sort of with a very broad perspective and sort of zooming in on the specific activities later. So I've decided to take this slide to a sort of a planetary perspective first, right? When we're talking about raw materials, then raw material production, when we say things like we need more mining or we need more recycling, we need more raw materials, then that is not a purpose in and onto itself. but really we're talking about a much bigger issue, and that has to do with planetary boundaries. And there's an exponential worsening of the situation when it comes to planetary boundaries, as illustrated in this analysis from Stockholm Resilience Center here. And so I'm quite happy to know that this is not the raw materials, the role of raw materials in these issues. It's not just something anymore that some researchers talk about, but has really found its way into the corridors of very high-level institutions, and certainly in the European Union, in the OECD, or United Nations. So the big picture that we're facing is that we need to face this green transition that we're looking towards now. We need to replace, in order to limit the effects on these planetary boundaries, we need to replace essentially dirty technology with green technology, right? In order to keep up our living standards, but have a sustainable system. So then there's some interesting statistics on this by the International Energy Agency, some analysis. I'm sure you know all these reports that we need critical raw materials for this to build this technology, right? And in some cases we need up to 20, maybe even up to 40 times in a timeline now, maybe 15 years from now, compared to what we have today. And at the same time, we see that geopolitical risks are much higher than what we would have anticipated maybe a few years ago. That has effects on supply chains, on protectionism, and all these things. You know what I'm talking about. And then the science tells us that you know, the recycling. People tell me often that, you know, we just have to recycle more, but of course we can only recycle what we have right now in the system, and that will not be enough, right? So the recycling will only meet a fraction of the demand for the time being, and even this in sort of perspective of 10, 20 years, the amount of new mines that we can open is very limited. Between a discovery of an ore deposit and opening of a mine, there's usually long lead times there, 20, maybe even 30 years. So even the sum, let's say, of recycling and mining will only maybe meet a fraction. So we need to look at the entire system here, the entire system of challenges, and we need to probably also work with circular strategies to keep raw materials longer in the loop, let's say. Things like reuse, remanufacturing, and so on. We need a broad grip on these problems of raw materials. I'm sure you are aware of this piece of legislation that came out now about a year ago, European Critical Raw Materials Act. Here's some high-level objectives of this act. So I'm not going into the details here. I just want to say that there is no legislation coming out on this topic. And we see the partnership here as a way of implementing and trying to have practical solutions, finding practical solutions to these problems. Because indeed, many of these problems we're not even close to finding.
I think, Tobias, you're muted.
Okay, now can you hear me now?
Yeah, now it works. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, sorry. I think it was my mistake. Sorry, Tobias.
How long have I been muted?
Sorry, it's my mistake.
just maybe 2 sentences.
Okay, good. I think I'm still sharing screen at least. So yeah, that's good. Yeah, so like I said, so these two, in order to meet these objectives and the European Critical Raw Materials Act says actually by 2030, we have to have a very strong research innovation system in place, because we need to find solutions in many cases for these. challenges first before we can implement them. I have to say that I'm representing today in parts Vinnova, my employer in Sweden, something a bit like FFG maybe in Austria, a research funder, but I'm also representing a network that has been going on since 2011. And this is around the time when the first list of critical raw materials actually came out. So it was a very timely sort of establishment of a partnership. And you see, just as we have to increase and scale up the raw material system, raw material production and resilience, we've also during those years stepped up funding and the size of this partnership, Eramin. And we've been going now through three iterations in total. At the moment, Eramin 3 is ongoing, but will end in the end of 2025, and we have no more calls out, so no more calls planned. So the final projects are running, and they will run to the end, and then we're done. But of course, you know, with the problems that I've been talking about, the problems don't just end there. So we need to find our next step, and I'm happy to say that now we found this in Horizon Europe. So in the work plan now, there is money being marked for the establishment of a co-funded European partnership on raw materials for the green and digital transition. And my talk is a little bit about the agenda, the one important piece that has to be in place in order to fund such a partnership is a strategic research innovation agenda. And my colleagues and I have been rather busy the last year or so writing this. With the help, of course, of the innovation system out there and the stakeholders. So I would encourage you to read it. It's a 100-page document, but there's also a lot of pictures, so it's not only text. And so this is something, this sets sort of the framework and the basis for the partnership, what we want to achieve, actually. Going back to Eramin for a while, a little bit background. This is the ongoing initiative, and we are a sort of global partnership, you could say, with base in Europe. A lot of European countries, of course, we're also funded by the European Union, but we have identified and managed to recruit certain key countries here when it comes to raw materials and mining. For example, Canada here, or South Africa, or even South American countries. A couple of others we would have liked to recruit, and we will try to recruit them to the partnership, but we haven't managed so in Eramin. But when it comes to money, you know, you see sort of the leverage factor that the European Union gets from this here. They come in with about 12 million euros. And the final funding is about 93, so it's quite a good leverage factor here for the European Union when it comes to just money. But it's not only about the money, of course. It's about the projects and about their impact. That's really what's important. So what 93 million euros is doesn't sound much in a research innovation framework, but of course this is money that can go into creating new jobs, securing existing jobs and so on, and sort of, you know, building prototypes and so on. So this is really, really important. Yeah, and I encourage you also to visit our website, Eramin. There is a dashboard function there where you can actually look into these projects, into every single one and what they are about. In general, we see a lot of focus on primary resource supply, so that would be mining, let's say, related projects, that part of the value chain, and then especially in the recent years, recent calls, secondary resources supply, recycling has really taken over, and it's now the major part of the projects that we have. And then also some projects on policy, on design of products and so on, resource efficiency and substitution of critical materials, of course. So please have a look yourself. And there's also these sort of project summaries or testimonials, as we call them, on YouTube here. So please have a look at that. Let me go into the research, the strategic research innovation agenda a little bit, and see if there's something that your country or you as a stakeholder can be behind as well. So the document is available through this QR code on the Aramin website. With the challenges that I just explained and the sort of system challenges that we see, the problems, it's a global. We have to have a global perspective on this and a very holistic perspective as well. So in this process of stakeholder engagement for the SRIA, we really came to the conclusion that an holistic view on this system is important. So this is not going to be, let's say, a mining partnership or a recycling partnership per se, but it would be much broader. So the mission of the partnership is simply to enable the green and digital transition by focusing on the raw materials value chain. And so we're trying to tackle this by looking into the different parts of the system where we can fund projects, where research innovation is needed, and that goes all the way through the circular economy, as you will see. And within this mission, we defined then a total of six thematic areas. 3 thematic areas you see here on the top, and we call them the core themes. This is, let's say, what we're more or less used to within Aramin, technical projects, more close to business, covering economic aspects of raw materials, let's say. And it covers really the supply side of things, call it maybe mining and recycling together, going through production cycle, even also products and production systems. Industry has to become more resource efficient. That will in turn then lighten the load on the supply side. And then, of course, the third part here, we want to sort of close the loop by also looking at the use phase and looking at the development of circular strategies, because one important part of the circular economy is that dimension of keeping raw materials at their highest value the longest time possible, and at the highest value they are when they are in the products, so when they're in the society. So traditionally, we've been, I think, too fast in looking directly from mining to use and then to recycling immediately, but we should have much more focus on things like remanufacturing, for example, to avoid recycling as long as possible. And these 3, let's say, technical themes on top here, the green ones, they are accompanied by a set of what we call transversal themes. And they are a little bit, let's say, softer, but equally important or even more important in some degree. And those are topics that we maybe have too long ignored a little bit from the research funding side as well. And they have to do with things that you're interested in. So effective policy development and governance, for example. We have a lot to do there in the raw materials system. Maximizing societal benefits. We need to get a social license, right? We need to get a social acceptance for raw materials and for raw materials production, which we in many cases don't have right now. And finally, we need an innovation, let's say, system in place. We need to have research infrastructure that is world leading. We need to work globally together with others and so on. So we need a innovation capacity building here. And that's the sort of transversal theme 3, as we call it. And we think together this sort of theme of 6, or this system of 6 themes here, together covers really quite well the Agenda 2030 Sustainability Development Goals here on the left, on the right side. And here you see the same thematic areas, just illustrated a little bit differently in a sort of value chain perspective. So if you're not quite aware or not so familiar with this raw materials value chain, then here, this is the picture for you. So we usually picture this by looking at sort of a linear path. Let's say the mining path, primary raw materials from exploration. That's what I've been working in as a geologist back in the days. Mining them, mineral processing, and some sort of refining in metallurgical processes, for example. This is important together with recycling. So this covers the core theme 1 here. And then we're going sort of, we erase we follow these, let's say, these raw materials through the circular economy. So design phase of products, production processes, they need to become more resource efficient, distribution, the use phase, and with all the circular strategies that entails. And then in the end, of course, we collect them, we sorting the waste, we pre-process the waste before some sort of recycling step. But it's important, I think, to cover all of these aspects in a partnership like this. And then you see that the transversal themes I was talking about, policy, social performance, and world-class innovation capacity, they are not strictly part of this chain. They're somehow a little bit floating around it, but they're important enablers. In this chain, we basically look at technical solutions, but we can have the best technical solutions in place, or we can have the best technical solutions developed without a social license or an environmental license or sort of an economic feasibility behind it. They will never be implemented. So then that's where these enabling themes come in, these transversal themes. Let me say a few words on our, let's say, position in the wider research innovation system of the European Union. Of course, if you start such a partnership, you don't want to do something that other, let's say, initiatives already do. So we are careful in sort of putting ourselves in, finding our niche, finding our gap here. So we're complementary to others. So we're looking, when it comes to raw materials funding, we're looking, of course, at Horizon Europe, the Horizon Europe calls that are usually there for large consortia, large funding, fairly difficult process. I know you've gone through such a process when you started your project, of course. TRL levels sort of in the middle range here, long projects, and we have EIT raw materials, of course, also a big funder, but they have certain requirements. They start usually at quite high TRLs, quite high technological readiness levels. And so that's what we want to sort of be complementary to by focusing on lower TRL levels, sort of idea-driven research, maybe smaller funding per project and a bit shorter durations, where ideas can be tested, let's say, towards maybe a prototype or something that can then be taken over by these other funding schemes. So that's sort of the place that we see ourselves in. And then, of course, there's a landscape of other partnerships. I'm sure you know some of them. And raw materials is especially interesting field to work with, because raw materials are everywhere, right? You need raw materials for everything. We wouldn't have this meeting here without raw materials. And they are, you see, they're in all the value chains out there and in all the life cycles. So we have to work together with, of course, downstream partnerships, let's say, on batteries, on manufacturing, on processing industries, on advanced materials, and so on and so on. That's very important. Yeah, Peter, I don't know if you want to take a break for questions here, or if I should just continue.
That sounds good. So I mean, first, are there any questions from the audience? So far, because so far Tobias has provided an introduction, and now afterwards he will explain a bit more practical aspects. So now is a good time to just ask a few questions, if you want, about his initiative and about the topic. Doesn't look like you can come up with any questions if you want. So I have some questions for you as well. Looking at the Western Balkans, in your previous initiatives, there have been also some partners from, for example, Bosnia, I've seen, and maybe also others. What was their role, and how do you think will it be similar, or will it evolve? What do you think would be the role of Western Balkans countries? Or
first of all, I want to say I take my hat on as a geologist here, right? That I think Western Balkans are a key country when it comes to raw materials. You have a strong, first of all, you have the geology for it, but you also have a strong history behind you when it comes to, for example, to base metal production. So I think you are important for us from that point of view. Then, of course, you have good, let's say, entry into these several partnerships because you are associated to Horizon Europe. That is an advantage. So we would love to work with you. And if you, I'm sure if you look into the dashboard that we have on the Aramin website, you will see projects where Western Balkan, let's say, stakeholders have come in and contributed here, right? Partnership, let's say, partnership participation is just a way to formalize this and maybe to, you know, get some top up from the EU for this and so on. But long story short, I see a very strong role for Western Balkans when it comes to raw materials and raw materials research. I would be sad if we would miss you in this initiative. Right?
And also regarding the different kind of partnership types, or you have also shown the niche or the role of the new partnership plan in comparison to the other, like EIT. So do you see there also kind of a specific advantage of joining your partnership compared to the other ones, or like because it's maybe on the lower level, TRL levels? Do you think
it's much on that. I mean, you could argue that from a thematic perspective, we're doing maybe similar things as EIT raw materials. But I just see that there's the sort of, I mean, if you do sort of a gap analysis of the European system, there may be something missing there on the lower TRL. So it's specifically TRL 1 and 2, let's say. If you're really down in the lab and have some great ideas that could really be groundbreaking and radical innovation ideas that could really change a system, that's what we really need, right? And that is sort of that is hard finding funding for at the moment. That's what we see. So that's why we want to come in and say, okay, those researchers with the really ideas where, let's say, maybe even industry will say this is too crazy for us, we will never fund this. That's where we want to come in and provide a mechanism for that. Yeah. And then, of course, you know, the whole thing with the international perspective that I was trying to say, you know, I mean, knowledge and so on is only good if it's shared with others, right? And sort of that we sort of we try to protect that within sort of national boundaries within Europe. At least to me, doesn't make much sense. That is both for geology, that those also don't care about national boundaries, but also for things like knowledge and innovation. So we have global problems and we need global solutions, let's say.
Thank you. So Slobodan Radosinovic from GSM, or GSM is maybe your institution, has a question or a comment.
First, hello to everyone, and thanks for the possibility to be the part of this meeting. I hear a lot of interesting questions. Almost all are, let's say, known to me. Geological Survey of Montenegro is small state institution, but we still work on exploration of mineral resources in Montenegro through the national projects, which are financed by our ministry for now mining, oil and gas, or from our government. But also we were involved in the previous projects through the AT raw materials, also several projects which were connected special to the mineral resources and critical mineral resources also. What's the problem with the small countries and the small institution? It's lack of people, first of all, and lack of understanding in our countries about the importance of materials, raw materials, and critical raw materials in our lives. So it's always the fight for the funding, always the fight for the young people who will work on these issues. It's not possible. Less and less young people start to study geology, especially in this field, so it's not popular. And it's also it's huge resistance to the mining in our country also. So I'm glad that I'm with you today, and I'm glad to hear that there's a lot of possibilities for the future cooperation. What's the problem with our institution? There is no funding, there is no money for membership in such kind of actions. we also stopped to not totally collaborate with Eurogeo surveys because of memberships and etc. So we are always in some bad times according to funding. But I would like to address that me personally and a few people who works in mineral resources exploration in Montenegro are interested to be the part or to start to work in such kind of cooperation with the projects that you're planning to work in the future. So thanks.
Thank you. You raise a couple of important points, and it's, you know, I can comfort you in the sense that all the things that you said about social acceptance, about lack of funding, let's say the perspective of a small country in big Europe or something, that you could just take that also for a country like Sweden. You know, this is the same. We have the same type of issues, and even more important that you seem to be aware that you know that let's say international collaboration is important and so on. I'm going to go into this in a while, how what the possibilities are to join and so on. That just I can say already now that there is a place here for, let's say, for organizations that are not traditional research funders such as FFG or Vinnova. So there is we're going to run joint additional activities, and that is basically the reason for that is that we essentially identified areas within this agenda that we've been writing that are a little bit harder to address with open innovation calls, right? So when it comes to social innovation, for example, or the research innovation capacity and young people engagement and so on, it's very hard to have a traditional research innovation project funded on that. So then we need more, let's say, strategic investments, let's say, into that. And there, I think we see a huge, let's say, role for geological surveys, for example, to help us with that. And with even those without, let's say, dedicated funding, that come in with a dedicated funding and can run funded projects.
So definitely we would be. Oh, okay. Please, Klaus Slobodan, if you want to answer. You're muted, it seems. Slobodan, are you talking to us? You're muted.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Just a few words more. I see Sanja and Branka here on this meeting, so we will meet each other and talk a little bit about these possibilities. It's important for us in Montenegro because of, for example, for special planning. Now is the final phase of the special plan for the next 20 years. I put almost all these initiatives and important progress and projects in the field of mineral resources and importance of mineral resources, and I hope that issues will be adopted in the special plan. But we also need to put more energy for social acceptance and also environmental issues. And just to continue what you say before, if it is not possible to go like an institution, we can start with some kind of associated partners, just to have some let's say basic cost for the meetings, and try to be involved in the key actions that you plan to do in your future work. Thank you.
Yes, I think we'll keep in touch, and I'm quite positive towards that. I think we will need we will need to establish advisory groups and things like that. We will need to establish additional activities, conferences, and so on. And I'm sure we'll find part. And now I'm happy to know also that this policy answers project here could be maybe some sort of facilitator in this dialogue. So then we know that we can talk to the right people, like Slobodan here. So that's great.
Yeah, especially
I think we're
regarding
running out of time. I've got a few more slides, so maybe we can just
Yeah.
continue a little bit.
That's fine.
It will go
Let's do it.
into exactly what we're sort of talking about. Am I still sharing my screen, or?
Yes, no, you're not yet. I don't see your
Not yet.
slides. Please try to share them once again.
Yes. No, maybe.
Yeah, now it works for me. Yeah.
Okay, so we call this partnership 101 what it is, how it works, how to join. It's sort of like what we've been already discussing a little bit. But so where we are at the moment is that we have formulated this very broad, let's say, mission about securing raw materials supply and sustainable use for the green and digital transition, right, through a holistic perspective here. This now practically the next steps, what that means is that the European Commission will start a call for us to establish the partnership. And that call, I can already say now, there will be a timeline in one of the coming slides, but that will start in April and probably close somewhere later in the summer. And right now they are sort of marking 90 million euros for us from their side. And that corresponds then to 30% of the entire funding for this partnership, which is then on 300 million euros, right? So this is, so compared to, for example, when I said that we spent in Eramin, for example, the ongoing EraNet, we spent between 2011 and now we spend about 90 million euros in total. And that is over a period of 14 years. We're going to have half that time and have a significant increase in funding, which is warranted in this case, I think. So this is good news right now. Of course, in the end we need also to fund projects that can work with this money. So we need to, the system, the research innovation system itself needs to step up the game as well. The consortium is right now the types of commitments that we got, mainly national regional funders, but like I said, organizations such as Eurogeo surveys are in there as well. We're going to implement them in the additional activities, so there's also a place for those. And like I said, we are looking at right now from 7 years from 2026 on until and including 2032, that is. Here's some sort of high-level goals that we want to sort of achieve in these 7 years. And they are very much alike what we already said in Eramin. So the fragmentation of national research programs and national things that are going on that are in parallel, working with very fragmented, very similar things in many cases, that we need to sort of break that, and we need to combine that, and the instrument of a partnership for that is very powerful, we feel. And of course we have a scope on non-fuel, non-food raw materials, just in case you're wondering. So we're not looking at, let's say, forestry or anything like that. So we're looking, essentially, we have a focus on minerals and metals, right? Essentially, I don't want to go through all the points here, but we want to have a partnership on that covers all the sustainability dimensions, including economic, environmental and social sustainability. Those are important aspects here. So right now we are consisting of, let's say, established Eramin partners such as Vinnova. We have new partners from EU member states, for example, FFG. It's a good example of that. And then we have also new partners from non-EU countries. So, for example, Switzerland has committed themselves, Canada has committed themselves, South Africa, and so on. We have already a global consortium in place. And the latest sort of projection is that we're going to meet the demand on the 210 million euros from the states, let's say, in order to be able to generate this 90 million euro top up from the EU. Yeah, at the moment there's a phase going on of committing yourself. If you're a member state or an associated country or really any country, you can send in a letter with your commitment, and so that's ongoing still. Will probably be going on until about January, and then it will be probably then after that too late for that round. But of course, you can also join later. It's just a question then what we do with the top up that is then set in stone, let's say, or we redistribute it then. Yeah, so we are working with the application or the proposal that we're going to send in later in the summer. Right now, we have working groups on that based on very much established work groups within Eramin. We've been working together for many, many years, so we have a lot of experience with this kind of stuff. And we will be discussing topics for the first joint call. And there I already can say that we're going to be present at the Raw Materials Week next week in Brussels. I don't know if anybody of you will join that, but there's still some places available if you would like to join us in a workshop that will discuss specifically onboarding of strategic third countries, but also let's say research funding topics for the first call that we're gonna want to launch in together with the kickoff of the partnership in early 2026. We already went into this a little bit, so I can go through this quite quickly. So we have two types, let's say, of activities that we're going to fund in this, and maybe the biggest part is this what I call here part one. Those are joint transnational calls, at least one big call per year, where that is basically revolves around national research funding being topped up by EU top-up funding. And in order to join these calls, you really need to be, let's say, a national research funder, that, such as Vinnova or FFG. A geological survey may not have those type of funds. It depends, but you can still sort of be part of the part two here, which is the additional activities. And there we're looking at, policy development, for example, impact assessment, monitoring, conferences, workshops, stakeholder engagement, civil society engagement as well. So all these kind of things. There's still a little bit open which types of additional activities we're going to run, but there's a lot of potential to come in with input and to start things. And there you don't necessarily need sort of big research funds in your organization to join that. Here's a little bit of a timeline. Like I said, we are in the process of signing financial commitments from let's say nations, from states, and that works either that countries commit for the entire partnership or something like per call. And like I said, we are right now on the verge of let's say achieving this 30 million euros per call or 210 million euros in total with the current state of these commitments. Q1 and Q2 of 2025 will be focused on the writing of the proposal for the partnership, and then we will focus also on the first call, of course, which is then going to be launched together with the kickoff of the partnership in early 2026. And then there's going to be the process of grant agreements, writing, signatures, partnership launch, consortium agreements have to be signed, and so on. So 2026 will pretty much be like a kickoff year where a lot of formalities will need to be put in place before we can properly start. But then we have many years to go to really make an impact on the research innovation system in raw materials. We already went into this a little bit, but let me just summarize a little bit what I think countries, what I think is what's in it for you, right? If you're, let's say, a Western Balkan country as an example, why should you join this? So based on my previous slides, you could say that there's a lot of leverage of national funds. They're always limited. I know from experience, national funds are always limited, and limited also to a certain amount of stakeholders that you have in your country that can only do so much, right? So you can leverage that with other national funding of your neighbors, of global countries really, and even then with EU top-ups. So you get a lot more out than what you put in. That's the whole idea. Sort of a win-win for everyone. That's what we're trying to create here. But it's not only about the money, of course. It's also that your research community in your country gets access then through these projects and through these initiatives to innovation in other countries, knowledge in other countries that can be exchanged and so on. So that's something that naturally is a part of these projects, these research innovation projects, that you get so you share know-how, and so that we can together move forward. Yeah. So researchers can enlarge their own networks and future possibilities, of course. Then we see a big possibility of funding here projects that may be idea-based in this case, but that can be scaled up later by EIT raw materials or by Horizon Europe. So if you feel, or your researchers that you have feel that Horizon Europe funding is a little bit far away, it's hard to access it maybe, then funding through this partnership might be easier accessible and might be a stepping stone into larger funding than by Horizon Europe in bigger projects. Yes. This is just an advertisement for our activities during next week, especially because we're going to have on Monday now, it's not too late to book travel, I guess, at the Hotel Marivaux in Brussels. That's next to the place where they're going to have the raw materials week in Brussels, the Plaza Hotel. So in that hotel next door, we're going to have basically a half-day workshop chaired by DG GROW, or the European Commission, but also by ERAMIN on, let's say, recruitment of third countries to the partnership, but also then on the core topics and on the additional activities, what we should focus on. And it's sort of invite only, but that has only to do with that the room that we're in is a little bit limited in number, but I know that there's still seats to be had. So if you want to be part of that, you're very much welcome, and you just send me an email and I will include you in that list. Yes, and then we have a sort of more tentative timeline ahead here. We're going to have an ERAMIN 3 consortium meeting that is more internal, let's say, talking about the next steps, what would happen for the ERAMIN partners. Especially, we're going to have follow-up meetings then monthly at least towards the proposal that we're going to send in later in the summer, and a couple of conferences where we're going to be part of as well. I think I'll stop here with some greetings from the ERAMIN consortium. Many of these organizations that you see here, or maybe all of them even in this case, will be part of the partnership too. So that's very good to know. Thank you very much.
Sanja, I hand over to you.
Yeah, we can just open floor for a few more questions, because we are approaching the end of the webinar, but we still have time for a few more questions. I can see here that we have a representative from EIT Raw Material, Christina. You want to make any comments?
Hi, hello everyone. Nice to meet you. Yes, I am a REES project coordinator at EIT Raw Materials. REES is a regional innovation scheme of the EIT that is trying to boost innovation in Eastern and Southern Europe, Balkans included. So these initiatives from REES are very relevant. I'm sure that Tobias is very aware of these initiatives. Also, like, if you have any questions for me, feel free to ask.
Good to meet you. Yeah, of course, I'm aware of EIT Raw Materials. You funded me back when I was a researcher myself, so it's I'm very much aware of.
Good to know. I wasn't there back then, but yeah, good to know.
Know what REES is. Just so you know that we have we have people, Roland Gauss and Didier Zimmermann. They
Yes.
are very much involved in
Yes.
shaping of this
Exactly.
partnership as well. So you will
Yeah.
you will be part of the advisory, let's say, team around this.
Exactly.
It's already established. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, we have many similar motivations for this sector, for raw materials, to address the entire value chain and to this social license to operate. It's also, we are very familiar that this needs to be addressed, and there needs to be better communication with people, with the nations, right? And so I think there's a lot of overlap, but like the more hands on deck, the better. That's the way I think I see it, and also anyone in my company. Yeah.
Good, thanks. And now we have probably the last question by Branka. You are muted, Branka.
Okay, do you hear me? Hello. I'm Branka Žižić. I work as a EAT community officer here in Montenegro. I have some experience quite some experience from the public sector, from the Ministry of Science before. And also I happen to have read almost whole state program for exploitation of mineral resources of Montenegro due to one project that I was involved in. So that I have some things on my mind, thinking about them, and maybe also just sharing them for the sake of I don't know, considering some issues that maybe happen in these countries that maybe you out there in Europe are not so aware of. Like here in Montenegro, I see that we have quite, I mean, what I have read and know also from talking with Slobodan and meeting with the geological survey people, we have quite significant mineral resources and quite diverse mineral resources to be exploited and to be developed into maybe some entrepreneurial initiatives and so on. But somehow this is not happening. And when we have some initiatives related to mineral resources, sometimes they are connected with some projects which are perceived in the society as not being really transparent in the allocation of these contracts and so on. So I don't know, it seems to me that maybe some better approach to the exploitation of minerals, and not exploitation, but to the entrepreneurial activities in the field of raw materials would be a better approach to open up this really big kind of bias towards the mining and the mineral resources exploitation, which we have in this region. Because whenever there is some talk about raw materials, mineral resources, it is automatically connected in people's minds with some really dubious big investments. And actually, Europe is not helping in that matter at all. I will be just blunt about this, because the whole region is practically feeling compassion with what is going on in Serbia. You know, and on the other side, we have Olaf Scholz coming for the first time in Serbia or in the region at all, just visiting this kind of new mining site for lithium in Serbia. And the whole country, and I think I can say the whole region, is very much against it, because it is a very dubious deal. And so there are these issues that are going from the corruption or assumed corruption to not doing anything, and we are just stuck into this position. And I believe that somehow we have a lot of space maybe to go into this economic activity, but maybe in another way. And another point from one of the conferences which we had, actually it was the kickoff event of our hub, where people from Europe, from the European Commission, were saying, we see that Europe also should come to you with some good and healthy and transparent projects. So that we just I'm just putting different things here to just spur some thinking today or in the future. But this is how I feel what is going on here in the region.
Yeah, no, but you sort of, I don't know, I can only agree with you that, well, I can say that from a research funder type of perspective, that maybe we've been ignoring these things too long, you know, the sort of, I would call them sort of softer as societal aspects around this system. We need to, this is also innovation that is needed here, right? We don't have good solutions for this type of things that you explain. So there needs to be, it's a different type of innovation that we need, but it's also innovation. We need innovative solutions because we need, in the end, we need access to these raw materials, just like what you said. It's just important, right? And if we, in many fields, we are actually, you know, there's Swedish companies that are technological leaders in the world. They own a certain markets. They earn, for example, underground machinery markets, right? So we are on the technical side, we are very much ahead. But there's other aspects here that also need to be developed, and we need to take them seriously. That's what we're trying to do in this research innovation agenda here.
So I think now we are coming to the end of this session. I think it was a really great presentation. Thanks, Tobias, and we had also great discussion. I want also to say how pity it is that we cannot achieve the dream, that we have good synergies between national funds, EU Horizon, Euro funds, and the big envelope of money which is connected to EU cohesion policy funds for Western Balkan IPA pre-accession funds. Somehow there was a dream that where this big envelope we could also support participation in European partnerships. It's not yet achieved, but I really hope that it will come at some point, that will solve problems of all good researchers who want to participate. With that, I would like also to invite you to share any ideas with us, with the policy answer teams, and you can visit also our Western Balkan Info Hub. I also mentioned this EU Western Balkan Policy Dialogue, and with that I would like to thank you very much for this great webinar, and I also use opportunity to wish you happy holidays, and I hope that I see you next year. We will have a webinar in January, end of January, and this event has been recorded, and we will upload on YouTube, and we will share with all other people who are following us, and let's hope that the Western Balkan will be part of your partnerships. And yeah, with that, I thank you once again.